like to introduce my co-conference manager, Andrew Silver, to give opening remarks.
Thank you, Stephanie. Students, faculty, staff, and distinguished guests, it is my pleasure to welcome you to Philadelphia Model United Nations 2007. Over the course of the next 4 days, you will be presented with an opportunity to examine some of the most critical problems facing Africa today and to take action to develop effective solutions where others have failed. Many of the problems that have historically plagued Africa can be traced directly back to the decisions made by the major European states at the 1885 Berlin Conference. It was here that Africa was carved up in a manner that would best suit the world powers without any regard for the continent's cultural, ethnic, social, or political differences. In fact, not a single African state was even invited to attend this conference. As a result, for almost 60 years, most states in Africa, with the exception of Liberia and Ethiopia, became subjects of distant regimes that cared more about the tangible economic benefits they could enjoy, as opposed to giving ample consideration to the well-being of the native people. As quickly as European nations came into Africa and divided the continent along unnatural boundaries, they left in the period following World War II. Many African states subsequently became unstable, leading to prolonged periods of ethnic conflict or struggles for power. Moreover, the ongoing Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union exploited the already tenuous situation in Africa by installing dictatorships, funding coups, and assisting in the formation of ruthless, undemocratic governments that further imperiled the continent. Africa is clearly not the homogeneous landmass that many people assume. Rather, it is a continent rich with cultural, ethnic, and political diversity. The numerous tribes and ethnic groups, which range in size from millions to a few thousand, have each developed their own cultural identity and speak approximately 1,800 individual languages. Geographically, Africa is home to both tropical rainforests and one of the largest deserts in the world. Unfortunately, however, the world has still yet to adequately consider the circumstances unique to Africa in its efforts to solve the continent's problems. The repeated failure of the international community to adopt meaningful, effective solutions underscores this fact. Today, the effects of colonization are still felt throughout Africa. Where states were divided along unnatural borders, ethnic conflict rages as competing tribes and ethnic groups seek to establish supremacy. The continent still struggles to produce democratic regimes that are able to effectively provide resources for their citizens. Diseases, most notoriously HIV/AIDS, continue to plague the continent. Moreover, in 2006, the US-based NGO Fund for Peace established an index measuring failed states based on qualities such as massive refugee populations, severe economic decline, widespread violation of human rights, and delegitimization of the state, among others. Ultimately, it was determined that 6 of the top 10 failed states in the world could be found in Africa, a truly startling statistic. It is clear that without coherent international support, states in Africa will continue to struggle for legitimacy, leaving countless millions of Africans with little representation and even fewer human rights. Much of the recent focus on Africa has surrounded the ongoing conflict in Darfur, a region of the Sudan that has become the focus of pop culture icons as they attempt to show awareness of international issues. While it is certainly important to continue international efforts to alleviate suffering in Darfur, it is equally important that the world take note of other issues in Africa that similarly afflict the continent's citizens. For instance, until very recently, many were not aware of the dire conditions facing the people of Somalia. Although the situation has since stabilized a bit, in late 2006, there was ample evidence demonstrating that the nation could soon be engulfed by war. Existing without an effective, legitimate government since 1991, Somalia was plagued by conflict over which of the two governments claiming the right to rule was in fact legitimate. At the same time this conflict appeared to be inevitably leading to war, Somalia faced grave humanitarian concerns from a flood that damaged crops and was slowly leading to mass starvation. Yet, the military conflict and developing humanitarian crisis were not given major media attention in the United States or other Western nations. Eritrea and Ethiopia, two neighboring countries that have historically not shared similar policy preferences, have backed opposing sides in the Somalia conflict. This weekend, the delegates of the African Union will be asked not only to consider ways to diffuse the existing tension between these two states, but also how to prevent their disagreements from spilling over into bordering Somalia. Delegates in UNICEF will be examining another humanitarian crisis the international community has yet to deal with effectively, namely the continued problem of children who acquire and must live with HIV/AIDS. Likewise, the Commission on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice will seek to discover and address the causes and implications of human trafficking. These are just some of the issues that will be discussed this weekend. Each committee at the conference will examine some of the most pressing matters facing Africa today. Philmun 2007 will ask each of you to reconsider previous efforts by the international community and to develop effective, feasible solutions to Africa's problems. Each of you will be asked to faithfully represent your state's position while giving due consideration to the underlying social, political, cultural, and economic issues that divide the continent. Moreover, we challenge you to avoid attempting to solve non-Western issues using Western solutions. Too often, so-called third world issues are addressed from a first world perspective, providing an unrealistic framework for states to work within as they attempt to bring about lasting solutions. Like trying to put a square peg in a round hole, these efforts have more often than not led to failure. Attending Philmun 2007 is a great first step towards empowering yourself to make a difference in the world around you. Recognize that over the course of this weekend, you will learn important lessons that translate freely to the real world. Rather than viewing the conference as simply a simulation taking place in an insulated bubble, use this weekend as an opportunity to grow and develop your own viewpoints through understanding others. On behalf of the entire staff, I wish you the best of luck as you attempt to resolve the critical issues afflicting Africa today. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy yourself at Philmun 2007. It is now my pleasure to reintroduce my fellow conference manager, Stephanie Horowitz.